Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. I can hear you.
Great. Hello, Jackie. Okay, so we are live. Okay. Hello, everyone. So you're welcome to yet another episode of In the Box Knowledge series. My name is Yara Kyofori, and I'll be the moderator for this episode. And I might have some seasoned panelists with us who would be having in-depth discussion and insights. And as we already know, In the Box Knowledge series is created by Box Blade Ventures. Box Play Ventures is an Accra-based startup and SME that is passionate about supporting entrepreneurs and building the entrepreneur and innovation ecosystem, not just in Ghana, but in Africa as a whole. With this knowledge series that they have created, they aim to provide attendees and participants with the right knowledge and insights to scale and to advance and to also have in-depth conversations with seasoned experts and practitioners in Ghana's tech ecosystem and in Africa as a whole. So the topic for this episode is how to build a new media age company in a digital world. How to build new media age companies in a digital world. And um, with this with this episode, we'll be talking about strategies, we'll be talking about digital trends, we'll be talking about how to identify network opportunities, how to take advantage to foster collaborations and partnerships. So before we dive into the conversation, I would want for the seasoned panelists to introduce themselves, then we start the conversation. So Nizo, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Yara. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My name is Nizor Ogbezode. I'm a data scientist at Innovate Technology Hub and also the founder of Geeks Guild Africa.
Oh, great. Tell us what you do at Innovate Hub. Is that what you said?
Okay. So Innovate Hub is an NGO located in Nigeria. We're very big on prototyping. We're a maker space. We love pre-seed. We love to work with those people who just have the idea. I have an idea. I want to build something. Out of this world. We all welcome that. We help you deconstruct your idea from just an idea. We break it down into actionable tasks that can be done. And then we end up building prototypes. And a lot of what we've built have made it to MVPs, and a lot of them have hit the market. And that's basically what we do here. I serve as the head of the technical projects. I coordinate the technical team.
Great, great. I look forward to this
Yeah.
conversation with you. So, your entry, please give us an introduction.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. My name is Yao Chu. You can call me Yao. So I'm the producer of Building Bites. It's a podcast where we tell relevant stories about Ghana's tech ecosystem to drive growth and innovation. Apart from that, a software product designer consultant. I've worked on a number of products for MTN, Saving Greens, and then Paul Police and a few others. I'm also an alumni of West Africa. So I was in the EIT
Okay.
program a while back. Yeah. I'm very excited
Great.
for this conversation. Yeah.
Me too. I'm also excited as well. I mean, we are in a digital world, and then new media companies are everywhere. It's like the new trend. So Having the discussion, I believe, is going to be beneficial, and you are the experts. You are the seasoned panelists, so I can't wait to hear from you and all the answers you'll be giving to our questions. And I believe that at the end of this episode, all attendees and participants will receive the right insights and knowledge regarding how to build a new media company in
Yeah.
this digital world we find ourselves in. So, yeah, my first question will be for you.
Mhm.
My first question will be for you. You are telling relevant stories about Ghana's tech ecosystem to drive growth and innovation, something that is very, very, very important and relevant in our tech ecosystem. My question for you is, in your experience as a podcaster building Bytes, how important is storytelling in fostering innovation and growth within the tech community? And can you share a specific story that's had a significant impact?
Okay, great. So we are an ecosystem, right? And
Yes.
I think most of the times we downplay the importance of telling our stories, especially telling from our own point of view, not someone a third party, right? It's very important. Let me just step back a bit. So, our building by our thesis is very simple. We believe that there are a lot of successful companies in Ghana. I mean, in terms of revenue, in terms of impact they are making, a lot of them. And most of these companies have run for a number of years, right? You have them, most of our companies, successful ones are over 10 years old. Honestly, these guys have really learned a lot on their business. They faced a lot of challenges. They face challenges that new businesses are going to face, right? And they've solved these challenges, right? To be able to hit the mark of a decade, they've solved these challenges. So our
Exactly.
thesis is very simple. We speak to these guys, they tell us their stories, and then we make all these insights available to everyone. So you don't have to be the friend of Alex Bram, who is the CEO of Aptel. I doubt not many of us will have an opportunity to have a conversation with him. But then what we are doing is we speak to these people, make sure that we ask them relevant questions. They tell us, and then make all these insights available to almost everyone on the internet. And then we believe that by making this insight available through storytelling, most of the basic mistakes and basic challenges that you face as a Ghanaian entrepreneur running a software business in Ghana, you learn some of the ways to approach them through these conversations. So I just cite two examples from some of the feedback we've gotten from our episodes, right?
Yeah.
The first one is our episode we did with Benjamin Saki, who is a seasoned product designer manager,
Okay.
product manager and designer. So most of the time you meet people and then they go like, I listened to that episode. It was very exciting, insightful. I learned a thing or two how to start my career as a product designer. I learned a thing or two of how to approach building products in the Ghanaian market. So like most of this insight Benjamin has the insight, but there aren't platforms for him to share it, and then we creating such a platform for him to make that insight available. A second case study I'll just give is our most recent episode. We start with Tariq Mugani, the CEO of Affinity Africa. And then after the episode, I mean, a lot of people are reaching out to us. Oh, I didn't know these guys were doing so much. They're doing a lot for the small and medium scale businesses in Ghana. How can you connect me to them? I am interested in the partnership. Yeah, so like we are really like making sure that what people are building, people know about it. You don't have to be their friends, you don't have to be in their circles, but then making it open to almost everybody, and then the years of learnings accessible to everyone. Yeah,
Great. I mean, as we know, that to make a journey easier or shorter, you ask those who are there or who have made it there. So you
exactly.
are really doing something very important for the tech ecosystem. And I'm glad about the stories you've even shared that is already driving the growth and innovation. People are learning, people are being inspired. And what better ways to inspire people than through storytelling? So you're doing an amazing thing at building by. So I'll come to Nizo. Should I call you Nizo or Precious? Which one should we go with?
Nizo. I like Nizo.
Okay, okay. Let's go with Nizo. Nizo. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, perfect.
Great,
Nizo.
great. So Nizo, you are the head of technical projects and also
Yeah,
of the software department at Innovate Hub. My question for
yeah.
you is, for startups looking to leverage data science and AI, what advice would you give to them to effectively like harness these technologies from the onset, from the beginning?
Okay. Thank you very much. Before I go into that, I'll quickly like to um, do a quick big ups to Yao. It's nice what you're doing, and I like the hair. Okay, so a quick background of where I'm coming from before I jump to answer your question. So I started off as a data analyst and transitioned into becoming a data scientist. And that was a big move for me, moving from just analyzing to doing science. I was working for an FMCG, and the data became very big, and then we had to find ways to move the data from one place to another to bring it together and make sense of it. So all of that led me into data science, and now I'm an engineering manager. So to answer your question, I'm the data guy, so I'm always going to talk about data. Okay, so one very important thing you need to do when starting this is to identify problems or goals that data can solve for you. So it's very important that from the onset of your business, if you're willing to or wanting to integrate AI or some data management tool or process into your business or your whatever you're building, you need to start from the onset to define what you want to use data to do. Because this is very important. It's one of the biggest mistakes that people make by not defining. Because when you define, you will now know the data that you need to collect. So it's one of the very important things to do. So things that you can use data to do, you can use data to improve user experience. You can use data to for content delivery, for targeting, various use, visitors to your platform, and any of those. So that's one. And you need to build a very strong foundation. So that's the next thing to do. So when you have identified what you want to use data to do, the next thing is to build the foundation for that. So that just means, knowing the data, what you want to collect, what you want to do with it, how you want to use it, how you want to manage it, because it gets bigger by the day. Statistics have it that we're already eating the very major, well, I think we're doing trillions or quadrillions of data every day. So it's very important to know how you want to manage that. So after figuring that out, another good step will be working with data specialists. You need to work with people who know how to do this thing because it's changing world. It's evolving every day. Today we're doing this, tomorrow here we have to do it this way, and next tomorrow there's a new tool, and then you need to improve on what you've built. So it's very important that you work with experts. And another step or way to go about it is to start small, work with small, solutions. You can just start by maybe a recommendation engine. You don't need to go too big. You can start with, okay, I want to use my data to see everybody who comes to my platform and then what I will recommend to them based on either where they are coming from or their age or whatever data you can grab. You can use that data to recommend something to that person. So it's very important. Then also you need to leverage tools that are already existing. So there are a lot of tools out there. Um, so many tools. So to be good to look for something that is easy to manage. For me, I use it's called Nine, spelled Knine. It's a data science tool that has over 100 integrations. So with that, you have a lot of integrators that can grab data for you from almost anywhere, be it any tool you're using to build your digital solution. You can always use this to grab data and then build around that. So that's just some of the things I would advise people who are trying to use data to make their solution more efficient.
Wow. Thank you so much for that insightful answer. You've actually given a step by step breakdown to anyone going or wanting to know how to leverage on AI and data science to solve their problem. So, thank you very much. I'll go to Yao. We know how podcast is a big thing in our digital world today. Having to have a podcast that's focused on Ghana's tech ecosystem, what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered? And how have you been able to navigate or overcome these challenges?
Okay, great. So as a podcast, I mean, one of our biggest challenges is recording gear or recording studio. So currently, we have a recording studio partner.
Okay.
We don't own any mics. When I tell people, like, they're like, "How are you run a podcast without owning any mic?" So we have a recording studio partner, but that's been like one of our biggest challenges since we got started. It's been a year since we've been running. We had to keep changing studios, keep changing studio partners because one, we are not getting value for money, we are not getting a good service, and things like that. So, but currently we have a studio partner who is good. I mean, is good
So
so
that's
far.
been helpful.
Yeah, that's been helpful. And then
Great.
our next one of our next biggest challenges having a pipeline of people to talk to, right? So initially, when we started, we are currently in our 22nd episode for this season.
Oh, that's
Initially, when we
great.
started, yeah. Initially when it started, it was big of an issue, right? We were doing interviews for the first time, and some of the people were outside of our immediate network. So it wasn't people that I know, it wasn't people that Poga knows, it wasn't people that Caleb knows. So it takes a longer time to convince folks to get onto the podcast because one is new. I mean, you've not had any big personality to validate the platform yet. So initially that was big. That was somehow an issue. But I mean, since our 15th, 16th episode, it isn't that much of an issue. And then I mean, we are glad that the ecosystem is responding to the great work that we are doing. And yeah, we are very
Great.
glad for that. I
Great.
think
But
there's
how,
another
how
thing.
did you do the convincing? Want to know that. How were you? You said now after the 15th, 16th episode, it's not really a challenge now. So with people
Yes.
who were not in your immediate network, how were you able to bring them on board and convince them to still grant you an interview?
Yes. So we are storytellers, right? And
Yes.
then we are also entrepreneurs. Like we run businesses, we pitch businesses and things like that. I'm the producer, and then with each person that I try to have a conversation with, I approach it like a business pitch.
Okay.
I'm pitching you
Okay.
to be on our podcast, and I'm telling you why you should be on it, and then I'm making a good case. At least I believe I'm making a good case. So I make a good case, and for every conversation that we have on the podcast, like we have a clear goal in mind, what we are seeking from the conversation. So with let's say with an episode like we did an episode with Haptos here, Alex Brown. Our clear goal is Haptos is growing. They are growing exponentially. Like why?
So
That
true.
was the clear
What's
why.
happening there?
That's the clear goal. And then from that point of view, if you are the tech leader and you are someone who's coming on the show, once the goal is very clear, it makes it a lot more easier for you to say yes and also to say no. It makes it a lot more easier. So we make a clear case as to why we want you on the podcast and then what story we seek to tell, and then for the greater good of the ecosystem. It's not just for us, though we are curious to know about your story, but it's not just us who's going to benefit from this, from you telling your story. Yeah. And then the other
Great.
one
Awesome.
also is,
Okay.
yeah, since we started running the podcast, realized that we can tell stories not just on the podcast, but also through events, so in-person event. With our first event, we had to, I mean, execute almost everything out of pocket with a session of the event space. And our second one is happening in September. We haven't onboarded a lot of partners yet, so it's been a little bit of challenge. But I mean, we are looking forward to getting a lot more partners onto that event series that we are organizing. So that's like three of our major challenges so far.
Okay. So with your upcoming events, is there a specific date yet?
Yes,
For you said
so
in September, is there a specific date?
yes, it's happening on the 27th of September at ALX Hub in East Legon from 6 to 8. So it's Demo Fridays. Basically, we are bringing people who are building products. So they come tell us about what product they are building. But the more focus on what insights influence the product that they are building and what they've learned so far. So we're having some new product demoing and some products who are already on the market demoing. So learn about the stories, what influenced you to build this product, how's the market experiencing, how the market's using it. Are there some insightful data that you can share with us? So I'm very excited when Izzy mentioned data and then things like that here.
Great. So, to participants who want to know how to convince people, say you have a podcast, you have a show, you want to learn how to convince people who are not within your immediate network, Yao has shared his secrets. So, do you want to always approach such people from a business perspective? Make them see what they'll also gain from being on your podcast and pitch to them. And you may not know, you will get someone you never thought you would on your show or podcast. So, coming back to Nizo, I mean, it's everywhere that AI is taking over content. AI is taking content creators out of the system, is taking content copywriters, content writers. All of that is going because AI is doing magic. My question for you
No.
is, well, my question for you is, can you share some examples how this is not true and how AI is rather going to enhance people in implementing their solutions in building media companies and in content delivery?
Okay, yeah, it's good you are debunking it already. AI is not here to take over people's
I know you
jobs,
are
and
ready to
all of that.
debunk
You,
this
you
for
got it
me.
right. I was going to debunk that. So AI is more of an autopilot. It's more of like an assistant. You want to do something, you jump on your AI tool, you get some more insights, and then you use it to make your whatever you're doing better. So that's what AI does. Nobody is going to lose their job to AI, please. Okay, yeah. So some examples of what you can use AI to do. Okay, so these are actions that you can take immediately if you run like a digital platform. So what you can do, like I already said before, is content recommendation. So a big example is what like Netflix does. You know, Netflix will use your location to share content with you. YouTube will use your location to share content with you. So it's basically this is as simple as collecting the person's location and sharing what other people from that location are watching. So it's more like it's very easy to implement. So very simple model. You don't need to build this model. You can leverage on some third party recommendation engine, just integrate it into your system and you have that already sorted out. Then another one is things like automated journalism. So when you have like repetitive tasks, you have to do something over and over and over. Why do you have to do that? You can just get a small script, tell it to anytime I give you this, you take it, you do this to it, and you give me this. So it solves that repetition of tasks. So very important, repetitive tasks, hand it over to AI, please. Focus on, things that you have to put your mind into. Another one, content moderation. So you have a digital platform where people contribute, and put their content out there. You can use an AI tool, a model to regulate. Maybe you don't want curse words, you don't want swears, all of that. Just get an AI tool, put it as a bot on the system, and then it will regulate the content for you, or it will just highlight whenever there is a content that you need to attend to, and then maybe take down the content. So that's another one to do. Then if you monetize your platform using ads, you can also do ad targeting too. So like right now I'm in Nigeria, you're in Ghana. So if we're all on the same platform, I don't need to show you something that you need to buy from Abuja. I need to be showing you something you can buy from Ghana. So
Yes,
ad
yes.
targeting, I use the I filter the ads and I give you what's very relatable to you. You're a lady, you want nice weaves and all of that, we serve it to you. Okay, another one is what we call NLP. NLP stands for natural language processing. So
Okay.
you can use AI to translate across board. So if we wanted to have this whatever we're saying here turn to maybe a local language in Ghana, you don't need to get an interpreter anymore. You can just get an AI tool. As I'm voicing it in English, it's collecting it, it's translating it to a local language in Ghana, and you're implementing it. So that's another way that you can implement, this. And then also before I end this set, focusing on what you all said around collaboration. Collaboration is very important. Um, building these new media platforms, yeah, you need to work with data, and there's a lot of skill gap when it comes to this thing. I'm not expecting somebody who is a media personnel to be very good with data. I'm not expecting you to be able to work with AI models. I'm not expecting you to be able to do all of those technical stuff. So he talked about collaborating. He started, he did not have the mic. He did not have, that's an awesome story to tell. It just shows the power of collaboration. You can just leverage on what this person has. Is a shared, like you said, he was pitching it as a business, pitching it to you that, okay, this, we are going to be gaining from this. So very interesting way to work. Collaboration is the key for the future. Even those of us in the software space, we are hooked on what we call open source, because open source is also collaboration. Working with tools that a lot of people have put in, a lot of their ideas into it, and now it's very robust and it's free and it serves the ecosystem. So big on collaboration.
Great, great. So I
Yeah.
am glad you started talking about collaboration and partnership. I have a question for Yao in that light, but before I go to Yao, I would want to ask you, when it comes to AI, would you advise or would you say it's necessary to take up courses on AI to learn how to better use AI, or a layman can like just use it without having to worry about taking like a whole course to understand it better? What would be your advice?
Okay, I did not mention this during my introduction. I'm also a teacher, so
Ah, say it.
it is very important that you learn how to use AI. In my workspace, it's like a slang. We tell it to everybody. Okay, I know we all use ChatGPT already. I'm very sure everybody uses it. But
Yeah.
those who know how to do prompt engineering, they will use it better than a layman who is just, prompting there. So it's very important. Even if you're not going to be developing, you need to just get something. Immediately Google released their set of AI tools. They released free courses because they knew it
Yes.
was very important for some skill gap to be filled. Before you jump on this tool. Instead, you will likely misuse it or you will not use it correctly. So it's important that you upskill yourself if you want to use AI to be able to use it, efficiently. So you don't need to learn the how to deploy a model, how to build a model. No, you don't need to know all of that. Just learn how it works. Because AI is just the same thing with the thing we say about computer, garbage in, garbage out. You give it something and then it gives you something. So if you're not giving it the correct thing, you won't get the correct response. So it's very good to upskill before you jump on the AI trend. And as a manager or a founder is good. Just get the basics so that when you're interacting, you know how to interact, you know what you want to use it to do, and it's very clear and concise.
Nice. Thank you for that. Thank you for that
Yeah.
answer. And to our participants, if you thought AI was going to take over anything, it's not. It's not taking over any job. If anything, it's rather enhancing and making things better. So, as Nizo has shared, make some time to learn more about AI, at least the basics and foundation, to make your work or job better for you. So, yeah, regarding collaboration and partnerships, how important is it, as a podcaster? How important is collaborations and partnerships in driving like growth and innovation in the tech ecosystem in Ghana?
Yeah. So partnerships are very, very important, and it's one of the things that we are keenly focused on to ensure that to not even ensure like enable and create platforms where people can partner. It's very important because one, you can't be everything at all times, right? You have area of expertise. There's something you specialize in. For us as a podcast, we specialize in creating platforms for people to tell their stories. We can't do everything. So in some avenues and in some areas, it's very important for us to partner with people who are subject matter experts in those areas. So partnership is very, very important. And it also, gives you room to explore, do things that you are not typically you won't be able to do on your own. So if I'll cite an example, when we did our first Demo Fridays event, we did a partnership with outfit, The Brief. So we partnered with this guy to
Okay.
help us produce videos from the event. Videos is not our capacity as a podcast studio, a podcast brand. at this point. So we had to partner with them, come on board, help us execute it very well. Also, even with regards to the events, we don't have an event space, we don't own a hub. So we have to partner with people who own a hub to ensure that we are using the space. And also, we are also plugging into their ecosystem, their community already. So it makes it easier getting people to the event and then selling the event as well. So partnership is very, very important. It's very, very important. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that. So partnerships and collaborations cannot be overlooked in growth in the tech ecosystem in Ghana and even Africa as a whole. So my question for Nizo regarding AI and data is, what are some challenges that media companies face when integrating data science and AI into their operations? And how can they overcome these challenges?
Okay, I'm very happy for this question because I can still link it to what he just talked about: collaboration, collaboration,
Yes.
collaboration. We need to collaborate. So the first one is that can quickly data quality. So your data quality is very important. If you start with bad data, you will really not get anything done. So you need to make sure that you are very sure of what you want to use data to do. Like I said in my first response, you need to define what you want to do with this data. Because if you don't define it, you will know the data you need to collect. And then when you collect this data, you also need to go through some, you need to clean this data. It's like a slang in the industry, data cleaning is one of the hardest things to do. So you need to clean it, you need to make sure that it's, concise and it can serve what you want to do. Then that's one. Another issue will be privacy. So privacy is a very big concern out there. In Nigeria, we have a commission, National Data Privacy Commission. So they define and set the policy and rules on how you handle people's data, how you store the data, how you use the data. It's very important that you keep people's data private. Like a lot of companies that harvest data, or if okay, I'm sure you've gone to some platforms where you want to sign up and they're asking you for your name. And you know that these people don't need your name. You can just work with something else. Instead of my name, ask for an alias, ask for something else that you just want to be recorded. So know the data you want to collect, know how you want to store this data and how you want to use this data. So there are so many regulations, there's GDPR, there's CCPA, all of that. So you need to be able to navigate all of these regulations properly. Then also, a lot of like old media companies are still working with legacy systems. So when I say legacy systems, I mean like the old system. So, and it's not too easy integrating AI into this old system. So that's one big challenge. I've experienced this where a company was working with some very old stack that, we had to migrate them to a new stack before integrating some data pipelines into the new stack to be able to harvest the needed data. So we need to be aware of that too. Then I also talked about this earlier. There's a skill gap, very big one.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not expecting a media person to be able to do all of this. So collaborate or maybe just engage a data scientist or an AI professional to be able to do that for you so that it's done properly. And another will be interpreting your data. So one thing is to get data, analyze it, and then you get a result. Another thing is interpreting it properly. Data interpretation is a big deal because you might interpret it wrongly, and then you will implement something that's wrong. So you need to be able to interpret properly. I think that's just some of the challenges that I feel people can face. Um,
More and more,
yeah.
I see the need and the importance of more and more of data scientists and the importance of data generally in building a new media company. Because
Okay. To even add to that,
okay,
not just building. I feel data should be part of how we make decisions for almost everything we do as a business. Yes, I'm sure you want to reach out to someone you must have checked some statistics. You want to bring somebody on your podcast. You will not just you check statistics. Okay, this
Yes,
guy has
definitely.
5,000 followers on LinkedIn. If I interact with this guy, bring him on my show, this and this is going to make some good impact. So you just need to put data in your day-to-day decision making. It's very important, not just in business.
Great, good points, good points. Thank you so much for that. And
Thank you.
we'll be getting some questions from our participants, and our participants keep the questions coming, and they will be answered before the end of this episode. So I'm glad you spoke about privacy regarding privacy being a challenge when it comes to data. My question for both of you, both Nizo and Yao, is um, in what ways can media companies effectively balance the need for engaging content with the ethical considerations surrounding misinformation and audience trust? I'll take that again. It says, in what ways can media companies effectively balance the need for engaging content with the ethical considerations surrounding misinformation and audience trust? I would like to start with you on this.
Okay, great. So we are balancing audience trust and then misinformation, right? And also
Yes,
creating
the
engaging
need for
content.
engaging content.
Yeah. So one, I think my stance has always been the work of media per se, and even in new media, like it's a very huge task to start a podcast. Like you're doing something greatly important, right? It comes with a lot of responsibility. That means that people are coming to listen to you, hoping that you are giving them accurate information, and then hoping that you verify the information you are giving them. So it comes with a lot of
So
responsibility.
true.
And that means that you can't joke with the platform that you're having. Even if you have 10 people tuning into your podcast, you can't put out any information out there just for getting views sake. That can be the norm and that can be the standard. And in terms of in regards to how you can approach that, I mean, these days it's very easy to fact check numbers. It's very easy to do a background check on who you are bringing onto your podcast. It's so easy to do that. It's just a matter of having internal standards that, okay, these are standard. We are going to ensure that we are fact checking everything. We are going to ensure that we are not putting out substandard content. We are going to ensure that we are being true to the power that we have, like the platform that we have. We are going to ensure that we are putting out the right information out there to people. I think it starts with the media brand or the media platform that you have and the perception and the internal standards that you set for yourself.
Great. So, before I come to Nizo, can you take us through the process you go through before like coming out with an episode? Like
Okay,
just briefly, the process you go through. You've spoken about the standard you have with your podcast. So, what process do you go through before you release an episode?
great. So before we get someone onto the podcast, or let's say before we publish an episode, we have a pipeline of people who want to talk to. It's an Excel sheet.
Okay.
We have it
Oh,
there.
great.
And then we also have mostly people will reach out to people mostly on LinkedIn, right? So reach out to them. As I said earlier, with each episode, we clearly have in mind what we are talking about. So once we have an agreement on what we want to get from this episode, we do a draft of the episode. We call it talking points. We do a talking point draft, stating every fact, every figure in the questions we are going to ask, how we are going to direct the questions. Once we do that, we share it with the guest, and then we ensure that we are on the same page. So if it's facts that needs to be verified, we've done that verification before we come onto the show, and we are on the same page. After the recording, we edit it at our end. We share with the guest also to ensure that what you said on the show is exactly what we are putting out, and then you are green lighting it. Sometimes it delays our timelines as to when we are able to publicly
Publishing.
make the episodes available. But it's a standard that we've set for ourselves that once you come on the show, we record all right. But then when we are done, we share with you to ensure that you've listened to everything, everything is intact. Maybe you misquoted some numbers, and then after listening, you realize that, oh, that's not the case. So we have time to, make those edits. So that's like a standard that we set for ourselves. And then one other thing is we've also, like, sometimes I feel like we've set a huge standard as to who we want to talk to, and it's very intentional because one, kind with our season, we are just looking at people who have really built something. Like we are not bringing you to come and tell us what you are going to build, bro. You've built something. You've learned something from
There's
it. Like
evidence.
yes, those are the people that we are looking like we are bringing on the podcast, and it's very intentional. It's intentional. So like we have evidence of what you've built. Like I'm not just the only person using it. Like we have people who are using the product. We've had like we've seen the stories. Like we've seen your revenues. I mean, it's publicly available, so like we can speak to those numbers. We can speak to things like that. So those are the people that I mean those are
Wow.
how we keep our standards we ensure that we are living out to the standards that we are setting for ourselves. And I mean, let me chip this in
Great.
here. I mean, you've not asked about it, but let me just chip in here.
Great.
So I feel like these days in Ghana, most media platforms or people who run media, digital media platforms in Ghana, are focusing a lot more on engagement and interaction, and then leaving the real work which has to be done. They are just leaving it aside. I think, I mean, it's a call. Like we have to like stand up for ourselves, like stand up and then set that standard that we expect of ourselves. I mean, you can't have a platform with 1 million followers and then you are posting bottles. Like you can't do that. Yeah, like you have to do. Yes, you have to push. You have to like the media advocates. You have to do a lot. You can't just be playing with the platform that we have. Like as I said, it's a responsibility. Like people are coming to you
Yes.
expecting verified data. And even now that we are in election season, like people are expecting a lot from you. Like we want to come to you, verify to know who to vote for. Even if you can't advise us, inform us that this might be a possible good candidate. Not because he has given you money, but because of the work that he's done or his track record. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, y'all, so much for that input. And I appreciate something that you mentioned that even when you make sure that you send the episode to the interviewer or the speaker before it's released to make sure that whatever he said or she said it's right, and that shows the standard we have set. That you're not even just after the views and all of that, but
No,
then
no, no, no.
impact both
Yeah.
driving inspiration and change in the tech ecosystem. So that's something that we all need to take note of. Not that the interview happens, the episode goes out, you are looking for how many people have viewed, what is no, but then the impact that is taking place. So I'm excited that you mentioned that. So Nizo, what's your take on this question? Should I take the question again?
No, 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 no. I've been following through. So,
Great, great. Let's go
yeah, I
deeper.
like what you all talked about, politicians and all of that. So I'll start from there. So, I want to tell you some of the very interesting models that are out there, like AI models. So there's this AI model on a platform called Hugging Face, huggingface.co. This model, it was trained with um, campaign speeches from politicians around the world. And it was trained to be able to detect if the politician is lying or he's telling the truth about what he's going to do.
Wow,
Yes, there is a model, and the model is very good at doing that.
who came
Yes,
out with that?
it's out there. It's a model, and it works well because it has been trained with speeches from around the world. Politicians come during campaign and tell you, "I will do this, I will
We
do
need it
that,"
in
and then they don't do
Africa.
it. Yeah, so it's very nice model. I can share with you. You just need to put it in your pipeline, and then when your politicians are talking, just pass the speech through the model, and the model will give you like a score of
Do
whether
you
this is going to
think
be true or not.
that
Because yes, they use the same model.
It's
They use
very
the same model
important.
every time. Yes, a lot of them just the lies are being repeated constantly. So you can somebody has said it before, and the AI model can track that and tell you this has been said before and it was not implemented. So that's very that's one thing you can implement. Okay. Talking about using how we can stay true to what we need to do when it comes to media. Um, Press the drum is very important. Yes, it's good. It's important. The press needs to be able to capture as much information out there and pass it to the public. And then there's also the concern of is the press being truthful, and are they telling us what the real stuff and all of that. So it's important that we put some form of checks along the way. So just like you talked about, he has, an Excel sheet and he has a step-by-step approach of how anybody who is coming in needs to go through all of that step by step, even though it is going to delay the final output, but it just needs to be checked. That's very important. So, I can already suggest to you what to do. From the technical side of things, build a model, and that step by step that you have, you can turn each of those steps into very good models. Because if this is something that if you plan on, your podcast to keep going and going, you keep having more data.
Yeah.
And the thing about models is that the more you give to it, the better it becomes. So if you
Better.
just create like a step by step, and then somebody's coming in, you just feed it into the model, it will just give you some score that you can work with. At least something, even though you need to still verify, you need to do the hard work, but this will give you something to work with. Like I said, AI is not taking any job. It's just there to suggest. It's there to score things. I give it a sentence, it scores it. It tells you, oh no, this is not sounding true. This is based on what I have gotten before. This does not look. So one thing to do, put step by step checks. For us in the development ecosystem, we turn all of those steps into models and we keep retraining this model. The more when we get new data, we put it back into the model, make the model more efficient, because now that you're doing the hard work, it will be not so efficient if you just keep, doing it over, not using what you've learned before to be able to reinforce what you're going to do in the future. So use it to build new models for each of your screening processes, and then at some point you will have a very good model that understands Ghanaians, the ecosystem, everything, and it will just run your system for you easily. So I think that's my own solution as a tech person.
Yes, definitely from the data point of view. So, yes, yes, yes. So we are wrapping up, but then briefly, my last question before we take the questions from the participants. My final question for you both will be: what metrics should founders prioritize when measuring the success of their media ventures? And how can they adapt to changing audience behaviors? I'll take it again. What metric should founders prioritize when measuring the success of their media ventures? And how can they adapt to changing audience behaviors? Briefly, I'll start from Yao.
Okay, great. So there's one thing that we are big on at Building Bytes. So we know how many people listen to our podcast. We know where they are listening from, and we even know how they listen. So the retention rate of each episode that we have. One is very important because it informs which episodes are doing well. And then, can you take the question again? I guess, sorry.
Okay, so the question is, what metrics should founders
Okay.
prioritize when measuring the success of their media ventures, and how can they adapt to like the changing audience behavior? So what are the
Okay,
metrics they
great.
should look out that say what you just started saying, like this episode was successful, and how we can probably implement it in other episodes. So how can
Yes.
other founders measure that?
Yes. So in terms of measuring, I mean, for a young podcast as ours, what our one of the key things we are measuring is growth. So are we growing? Is the listenership growing? Our focus necessarily is not on how many people tuned in per episode, but is that number growing? If it's small, it's big, is it growing? That's one thing that we are really measuring a lot. So each episode that we put out, and how quick it's growing, and then the traction for it. So we measure data from our website, people who are tuning in from our website, people are tuning in from Spotify. We know clearly which platforms that we get a lot of listeners from, even to the extent we know if it's a male or a female listening. So currently we have a lot of male listeners, and then we are working actively to increase our female listenership. And I mean, it has also informed. We recently recorded an all women episode to, I mean, get a lot more women listening into the podcast. So like these are things like you have to know who is listening. Like be very particular about the data. If you are not in tune to that data, like find a way to go around it. If you are publishing on Spotify makes that data available to you freely. So it's just a matter of time of sitting down, really going through it, and then learning about how people are listening to, where are listening from, and then what type of how they are even listening, their retention rate. I think these two things can really help.
I'm glad you've mentioned this, and it boils down to dates, and I'm sure Nizo will definitely touch on that because I know you touch on that because to even know what to implement, like you mentioned that you realized that you didn't have a lot of females listening in. Now you had to come up with an initiative of having an all women episode, and hopefully that's increased the number of women who tuned in. So at the long in the end, it's all about data. Data tends to inform. It's an important metric that informs the growth and the success of any media and venture. So Nizo, I've started a conversation for you.
Yeah. Okay, so to wrap things up, okay, yes, you talked about more male listeners and less female listeners. Okay, don't lose your male listeners. So you need
No,
to
no,
give
at all.
male content to keep them coming. Okay. So that's one point. And like a mantra that I work with, numbers don't lie. It's very important that we know that numbers always tell the truth. Yes, numbers don't lie. So okay, like I think I didn't also introduce this part of I am the founder of a platform called Geeks Guild Africa. So let me tell you how we at Geeks Guild Africa measure the kind of impact that we want. So one
Briefly
thing we do
though.
is we work with, yeah, okay, briefly, yeah, we work with trends. Trends. You need to know what is trending. You need to know, okay, this, like, okay, we know we're focused on the tech ecosystem, but in the tech ecosystem, there are trending topics. So if today we see that, okay, this has been trending and we're seeing that there might be misinformation around that, we have to release content around what is trending and correct that misinformation immediately. And also for engagement, um, we have found that a lot of people are trying to get into tech, and then there's no proper like guide or step-by-step approach on how to get into this field or that field. So it now made us immediately introduce a section called Getting into Tech. And then we had to start explaining step by step how you can get into these fields and even attaching courses. So this is one of our revenue this thing. We introduce you that okay, you want to get into tech, you need to take this, and then you can do this, register for this, and some are free, some are paid, and then you can now get into it. So you need to work with trends. Very important. You know what's happening out there in the ecosystem, and to be able to find these trends. There's Google Trend. There are so many of these platforms that offer trend information about what's
Yes.
trending based on
True.
a particular location. So jump on that, put out a lot of information around, and you can use that to grow with with the ecosystem that you want to grow with. I think that's just, let me know. I have just 5 minutes left, so keep it at that.
Hi. Thank you so much. So we have two questions from participants, and I'll want each one to take one each, so that we're able to wrap up. So my first question will be to Nizo. The question is, what skills do you believe are essential for future media professionals? What skills
Hmm.
do you believe are essential for future media professionals?
Okay, skills. I think one of the biggest skill will be people skill. You need to know how to talk to people, how to relate with people. It's very important that you understand what people want to say or what people are trying to say. So let me use my workspace as an example. Um, I work with a lot of Gen Zs. They are people very young at heart, very expressive. So it's good that you listen. You need to listen to what they have to say. You need to understand what they want to say. You should not get triggered by almost anything. You need to be as people oriented as possible. So it's very important. People skill is still very important. Even if we're talking about the new media age and all of that, it's still people behind the scene. It's still a human being doing all of that, putting out all of that information. So you need to know how to relate to people. It's very important. So people skill and upskill your tech skills, please, as much as possible. Um, learn something that will help your platform become better. If you need to learn a little bit of graphics, you need to learn a bit of content, all of that to be able to have like an all-round idea of what's happening. It's very important. But my number one is people skills.
I'm glad that's the number one because it's very
Yeah.
important and it can't be overlooked because people skill in any professional setting is key and can really contribute to your success as a professional. So my final question will go to Yao, and that is, can you share any strategies for monetizing digital content in a competitive market? Let's talk about money.
Yeah. Uh, I'll share what I know. I won't share. I've not.
Sure.
We haven't explored any of that yet. So I just share what I know.
All right.
So I
Okay.
mean, we all know digital platforms, YouTube. You can monetize on YouTube. And I think quite recently, Facebook and Instagram made monetization possible. So, but
Yes.
with those channels, I mean, you have to have numbers. It's a numbers game on those channels. But apart from that, there are other venues that you can also get sponsorship and then get like monetize what you are doing. So you can also do partnerships, so sponsored partnerships. So yeah, there are lots of people and there are lots of companies who might benefit from more niche communities. So a niche community like ours, there are people who are interested in working with us to, I mean, get to the people in our community. So you can look at organizing like more partnerships for companies. And then these days, if you build communities online, you can bring those communities offline. So through events and through paid events, even paid recording sections. I think locally in Ghana, I think there are a number of podcasts who are exploring that, like paid recording, paid in-person recording sections. I think Sincere Accra is doing that. Stay by Plan is also doing that, and I think it's
Yes.
successful.
Yes.
They're doing it back to back, so it's quite successful. So it's also something that you can really explore. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nizo and Yao, for your input and contribution. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did too, and I believe that the
Yeah, I did.
participants and attendees have also enjoyed this conversation and have received the insights and knowledge on how to build a new media age company in our digital world. And you can always look forward to an insightful episode from Box Play Ventures and look forward to the next episode as well. And as I mentioned, Box Play Ventures is passionate about supporting entrepreneurs and building the entrepreneurial and innovation tech ecosystem in Ghana and Africa as a whole. So this brings us to the end of this episode, and it's a wrap. Bye. Please, speakers, kindly leave your tap on
Okay.
for some time.
Okay. Great.
Yes.